This week on Hometown Ghost Stories. Although the smallest province of Canada, Prince Edward Island is jam-packed with haunted history. From a ghostly premonition in a church's bell tower to the spirit of a student haunting the dorm that he never made it home to one evening. This is Hometown Ghost Stories, the hauntings of Prince Edward Island, Canada.
Hometown Ghost Stories contains serious and often distressing events and is not intended for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Crap, Josh whispered to himself as he felt around for the set of keys he just dropped on the steps, trying to get back into his residential building at school. Getting to stay at Dalton Hall was a privilege, and he didn't want to mess that up by waking up the whole building at 2 a.m. His hand, shaking from the extreme cold, scraped through the snow on the stairs as he felt around for the keys. Even the moon was no help to him, as it hid behind a layer of clouds while the snow fell. Finally, the freezing metallic keys touched his fingers and he quickly grabbed them, once again fumbling with the ring until getting it under control. He stuck the key in the lock and went to twist it, but it wouldn't budge. He double-checked to make sure he had the right key, and tried again. Still, the lock wouldn't move. Had the lock frozen? He prayed internally that it hadn't. The nearest payphone would take him 20 minutes to walk to in this weather, and he was so tired, he wasn't sure he'd make it. As he began to ponder just knocking on the door and dealing with the consequences, he heard what he thought was someone trampling in the snow behind him. He turned back, and just as quickly as it had started, it stopped. Through the little bit of light emitting from the nearby buildings, he saw what looked like a set of footprints that walked in a circle, but no entry or exit. Those weren't there when he walked up there. Or were they? In truth, he hadn't been paying attention. He figured they must have been from earlier, yet they looked so fresh. He looked back at the door and decided to try one last time, and this time, the door unlocked without a fight. Josh happily slipped into Dalton Hall and quietly closed and locked the door behind him. As he stood inside the building, he slipped his shoes off to try and make the least amount of noise as possible before heading to his room. He tiptoed down the hall, and his eyes opened wide as he slid in a puddle of water right outside the entrance of his dorm. He grimaced as his hand banged the wall he reached out to grab, causing a loud echo down the dark hallway. To his relief, no one came to check on the noise. He walked into his room and began to search for a towel, and pondered where the puddle of water could have came from. Was Frank playing a prank on him again? Seems a little too juvenile for something Frank would do, Josh thought to himself. As he grabbed a dirty towel out of his hamper, he began to remember the stories some of the older students told him when he moved in. A few of the guys came up to him while he was moving his stuff and asked if he knew about the history of the room. Josh, just happy to be in the building at the time, said he wasn't quite sure what they were talking about. The older students looked at each other and began to tell him a ghost story of a former student freezing to death outside, and ever since, a puddle appearing outside the room and a loud knock at the door in the middle of the night. Josh figured they were just messing with him and never thought of it again until tonight. He sopped up the water on the floor, wondering in silence if the boys were telling the truth. And then, the loudest knocking he ever heard came from the main door of the building. Josh froze in fear. Students from all over opened their doors to see what was going on. As they all stood there, the pounding began again. The RA emerged from his room with a questioning expression and went to the large wooden door and swung it open. Nothing there. The students watched as he walked outside to investigate to see if anyone was there. Yet, he found nothing. Probably just some old pipes or something. he muttered, walking back in. "Everyone, get back to bed." The delivery of this line wasn't reassuring. It was like everyone knew what the knocking really was. Josh, just wanting this night to end, went into his room, locked the door, and threw the towel in the hamper. He lay down into his bed, looking up at the ceiling for a few minutes. When the knocking didn't return, he decided to roll over and get some sleep. As he rolled over, though, he was greeted with the feeling of wetness covering the other side of his bed. Josh tried to roll back over to examine what on earth was there, but he was stopped by two ice-cold hands gripping him on the shoulders. I'm Rob Coakley, and this is Hometown Ghost Stories, Prince Edward Island, Canada. Prince Edward Island is the smallest province in Canada, accounting for just 0.1% of the total land area. Although the smallest province in Canada, its few cities and towns are plentiful with the tales of hauntings. The island's capital boasts some of the more unique and terrifying ones surrounding the area. Charlottetown is situated on its namesake's harbor, opening to the Northumberland Strait. As such, the city has seen its fair share of boats come and go. Unfortunately, it's also seen its fair share of tragedy on the waters as well. Yet, no day stands out more for many than the morning of Friday, October 7th, 1853. Early in the morning, a sea captain was awoken by the sounds of a bell ringing. Sounding like the bell of a ship, he raced outside to see what the commotion was. As he reached outside and oriented himself, he noticed the bell was not coming from the direction of the water, but from the church kirk of St. James. On his way over, the bell had rung several more times, and approaching the building at the same time was the church's sexton. The caretaker of the church and the captain turned the corner to approach the door, where they saw three women, all dressed in white, with what they described as a glow, entering the door before closing it behind them. The sexton rushed over to open the door and follow the women in, but it was locked. And while he struggled with it, the captain looked up at the church belfry and saw a fourth woman dressed in white, starting towards the stairs after the bell tolled for the 8th and final time. The caretaker was finally able to open the door, and he and the captain searched the entire church for the four women. They found no one. It would have been impossible for the women to have disappeared that quickly, especially the one who would have come down from the belfry. The men were perplexed and began to tell the growing number of people wondering what was going on about what happened. Meanwhile, back at the docks, Captain Bellier of the Fairy Queen was facing a tough decision: be late with the shipments his boat needed to make, or set off into bad weather conditions. He decided to hold off just a few hours before departing. On the boat was 13 crew members and 13 passengers. The boat would take off, but never make port. While in the ocean, the steering rope would snap. Although the crew and some passengers were able to splice it back together, the ship would enter open water, where it began to get tossed around by the strong winds and waves. After attempting to bail the water and finding it no use, the crew decided abandoning ship was their only course of action. The ship had 2 lifeboats on board, one that could carry 24 passengers and one that could carry 8. Upon lowering the larger boat, the captain made sure the mail and other items he was transporting were placed in it first. One of the passengers spoke up and asked about saving the women on board, but the captain replied that they would get on the smaller boat. Yet, as the smaller boat was lowered, crew members jumped in the boat themselves and took off. The captain now faced the ire of the angry passengers after his men left before saving everyone. His solution? to lower himself in the larger lifeboat, holding it until everyone remaining got in. However, as he got into the boat, his first mate let go of the rope. The remaining captain and crew on the larger lifeboat drifted away and left the passengers behind that were screaming and begging for help. The pleas would fall on deaf ears. In all, 8 people would perish in the disaster, just as the bell rang 8 times at the church earlier that morning. 3 of the women were members of the church Kirk of St. James, whereas 3 angelic women had been spotted entering earlier that morning as well. A 4th woman perished in the open sea, just as there was a 4th woman in the tower belfry. No other ghostly happenings have occurred at the church since then that have been reported, and the building has been knocked down and rebuilt. Yet, the ringing of the church's bell is still feared to carry a ghostly warning. Just a 5-minute drive away from the church is the University of Prince Edward Island. Part of the school started out as St. Dunstan's University in 1855. As the school grew over the years, it required more housing. A wealthy fox rancher by the name of Sir Charles Dalton would donate enough to cover the vast majority of a new building, and thus, Dalton Hall was built in 1917. The building itself would remain a residence for students up until 1972, and is now used for multiple different purposes within the college. Many will tell you of a student who went for a night out and got back to the dorm room too late, being refused entry by an RA, and dying on the steps of the building. This has a foundation of truth, but the actual story is much more sad than that. On Friday, February 13th, 1931, Ivan Malloy and his 2 friends Henry and Emilio snuck out of the school for a night on the town. It's unclear where they went while on their night out, but on the return back, the snow was falling heavy, and it was blistering cold. Henry and Emilio made it back to Dalton Hall and noticed that Ivan was no longer trailing behind them. Frightened because they had already missed their curfew and knowing they were in trouble, they simply went inside and went to bed, thinking Ivan would show up any minute. Unfortunately, Ivan never made it back to Dalton Hall that night. Hoping he had found a place to stay, the friends anxiously awaited for him to show up on Saturday, yet he never did. On Sunday, they got a few other students together to go search for Ivan, and it wouldn't take long to find him. He was in a field across from the university, laying behind a snowbank with his arms outstretched, frozen to death. Ivan was only 16. Right after his passing, students began to report ghostly activity at Dalton Hall. The most frequently reported was a loud, aggressive knocking on the main door of the building. When students would open the door to see who was there, they'd be greeted by no one, and wouldn't see any footprints on the ground during snowy days. One student reported opening the door to find no one, and as he turned to go back inside, 2 ice-cold hands grabbed him and gripped him on the shoulders. Other reports include a large puddle of water appearing through the years near the door to Ivan's old room, with no logical source of the water being present. The feeling of being watched and followed throughout the hall have also been known to occur. The hauntings have said to have relaxed since no longer being a residence since the 1970s. But every now and again, the ghostly activity picks back up. In the community of Georgetown sits the King's Playhouse. The original building was built in the 1880s on the gravesite of sailors. Regarded as Canada's longest-running theater, it is also home to concerts and weddings. Although we've covered a few haunted theaters here on Hometown Ghost Stories, this one has a little bit of a twist. You see, the theater has a designated chair in the audience, specifically for the ghost they refer to as Captain George. Who Captain George actually is unknown at this time and will likely never be revealed. Yet, the hauntings have occurred for decades. Staff believe Captain George to be a playful spirit. Some of the common hauntings are the swinging doors opening and closing on their own, with no wind or person to cause it. Lights turning off and on is another one of the more common hauntings at the King's Playhouse. One evening, a band was performing in the Playhouse, and the lead singer walked out in the middle of the show because she kept hearing somebody whisper in her ear. These whispers have also been heard echoing down hallways as well. In 2014, a man by the name of Steve was filming the wedding of his friends Carrie and Lyndon in the Playhouse. Nothing was too out of the ordinary until Steve looked back at the footage he had taken of the bride and groom. As the couple was standing there, a shadow figure passed by the newly married couple. They tried to debunk it as someone in the room, but no one else was moving at the time. Steve would talk to a local newspaper and say the following, quote, "I don't really believe in that stuff. It's pretty weird though. No one could have been walking behind me to cause it. There was just no room." End quote. And whatever you do if you visit the Playhouse, do not move Captain George's chair. One evening, the Playhouse president moved the chair to use as a prop during a show. The show that evening had one issue after another, from sets messing up, electrical equipment not working, and audience members reported feeling people grab their ankles. Mr. Fletcher moved the chair back for the next evening's show, and it went off without a hitch. As the hauntings of the King's Playhouse continue to occur, one thing is for sure: Captain George is now a part of this theater. Whether playful or protective, his presence adds an enduring charm to this historic venue. If you ever visit, take a moment to greet Captain George, and maybe catch a glimpse of a haunting of your own while you enjoy the unique experience of this timeless theater.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome into Hometown Ghost Stories, episode number 128. I'm Jesse Wilkins. I'm joined by Rob Coakley. Hello, Rob.
Finally, we have joined our neighbors to the north and done an episode in Canada. They said it couldn't be done. They said we wouldn't find stuff to cover in the state of A. Is that what they're known for? Just saying the word A after everything?
Well, they're not a state.
I mean,
they're definitely not known for that.
country, continent.
Yeah.
Dave, our map expert, tell us what it is.
It's a continent in South America.
It's a Mexico.
Yeah.
We're also joined by Dave. Hello, Dave.
Hello.
Welcome in. So this is actually our first episode in Canada. I thought we've covered it Canada before. No? Am I wrong?
We've covered side content things in Canada, but this I think is our first main episode in Canada.
Oh, yeah. That's where we had our snowmobiling cryptid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. Well, I'm excited to jump into this one. Some good hauntings here. I want to thank everybody who's hanging out in live chat. We had a lot of gifted memberships, 20 from Matthew T, a $10 donation from Zeta. Jeannie R, who this episode is dedicated to, our RIP of the week to Jeannie R, gifted 20, also became a member. And then Blow Me in Chicago gifted 10. Matthew T came back with a $10.01 donation because he cannot be topped. And so thanks to everybody who donated, and those of you who are hanging out. If you did get a gifted membership, make sure you say thank you to whoever gifted those to you. But we're excited to be here for sure.
Yes. Dave, why don't you tell us a little bit about the show we have coming up in Weymouth?
That's a great idea, Rob. I'd be happy to tell you about it. Live podcast, Hometown Ghost Stories, our first ever live episode. We're going to be recording on October 18th in Weymouth, Massachusetts at Barrel House Z, which is a brewery. It's a bigger venue than we had at our last live event, and we're really excited to fill it up. We're going to be joined by another podcast, and the event put on by Inebriart. So we're excited to do this. It's going to be an awesome time. The link is on our Facebook. It's also on our website. So if you are looking to join us at that event, please do so.
Yeah, and it's appropriate that this episode is dedicated to Jeannie R. Jeannie R., a longtime supporter of the show, flew out from Alaska last year to join us at our live event in Plymouth, which means that none of you have an excuse to not join us in Block Island this year, where we are going to be doing an investigation for an entire weekend, Friday, Saturday night. We're going to be investigating a hotel on the island. We're going to be checking out a graveyard and all of that stuff. There's food involved, which we all love food, but space is limited on this. If you want to join us on that is October 25th and 26th. You can give Holly a call to make a reservation, 401-466-5891. You're going to be able to join us. We'll bring all our equipment, and it's just going to be our first time doing a public investigation with listeners and other people alike, but the space is limited, so get into that while you still can.
I'm excited for it. A lot of exciting things are in the works for this spooky season, and it is officially spooky season. I know we've been saying this for like 3 weeks, but now it really is officially spooky season. Independence Day is behind us, and after that, there's really nothing until spooky season. So that officially means it's spooky season. Mm-hmm. So let's hit the ground running.
We have my birthday coming up,
Relax.
Turn 22. It's very exciting for all of us. I'll probably just turn 21 again. That's what we'll do. Idea. So, but let's talk a little bit about Canada. What do you say? Hey,
not your friend, buddy. Everything I learned from Canada, I learned from South Park. So,
not a lot of the Canadian accent's kind of like the Midwestern accent, right? Probably depends on where you are.
Yeah. I think they're also passive aggressive nice, where they're actually just probably assholes, but they act like they're nice.
Did I not cover Toronto? Am I crazy? Like, I swear to God, we covered. Maybe I think I looked into Toronto and then pivoted or something, but done heavy research. Canada's a very haunted place. There's a lot of it. Allie in here says, lots of great ghost stories from Ottawa, my hometown, or Nova Scotia, where I grew up too. Yeah, they're all over the place. So this will definitely not be our only time covering Canada. Could even go to Canada. It's only about 9-10 hour drive from us. It's not too far.
Prince Edward Island is about a 9-hour drive. I looked into it and I was looking at hotels because it looks like a fabulous place to go to for the summer. Like, it doesn't get too hot. You're on an island. It seems like the perfect little getaway. Our Canadian friends are probably going to say, Rob, Prince Edward Island is not a town or a city. You're covering an entire province, which is like a Canadian state. They do all that weird shit up there. But a lot of the little towns only have 500 people and stuff. So I figured doing Prince Edward Island is best to do it. This isn't going to be the only episode. We didn't even cover the biggest haunting on Prince Edward Island.
Wait, Prince Edward Island is an entire province?
It's an entire province, but it only covers 0.1% of the Canadian land.
Oh, wow.
But it's most densely populated.
It's like the Rhode Island of Canada.
It's about double the size of Rhode Island, and the entire population of the island is the same as the city of Worcester, Massachusetts.
Oh, wow.
These are all the little fun facts I was looking up to kind of lay the scope out of how big Prince Edward Island is. They have 2 major cities, 10 other towns, a bunch of little neighborhoods that they're called and stuff, like Georgetown, where the playhouse is. So it just looks like a really cool place to go visit, and I'm excited to dive into it. And like I said, we haven't even talked about, it's going to be a future episode of the biggest haunting, but let's talk about the ones that we covered in this episode. I want to start with the Phantom Bell Ringers of the Church of St. Kirk there over in Charlottetown, their capital. And it is one of the more we find these unique hauntings things.
We did do Toronto. We did Keg Mansion. Sorry, yeah. Donnie pulls it up. I'm like, I know I'm not going crazy. I'm pretty sure I did an episode on Toronto. The thumbnail has me doing this because I'm like, oh God, Rob's gonna forget. Okay. we have done Canada before.
I'm glad we got that out of the way. I'm glad we fixed that correction because we would have got 300 emails letting us know that we, in fact, had covered Canada. But the Phantom Bell Ringers is such a different type of ghost story than anything we've ever covered because it's a one-off event, and it's more like a ghostly premonition more than anything, right? So you have the bells start ringing very, very early in the morning, and there's this ship captain that hears it. And what I found I found a lot of stuff interesting in this one, but what I found like intriguing about the opening of this is when he heard it, it sounded like the bell on a ship. Like he made that distinction. He's like, that is a ship bell. Why is a ship bell ringing this early in the morning? And when he went out and started looking around, he noticed that the sound wasn't coming from the docks. It was coming from the church. He's like, that's weird. So he went to investigate, and he found the church sexton going over there as well, which is like the church caretaker. And they're both like, why the hell is this bell ringing right now? And as they look at the doorway, 3 women with long dark hair, all dressed in white, all silent, are heading into the church. And they said that they had like this glow around them. And so they chase after them, like, what the hell are these women doing going into this church? And they can't get in, and they look up, there's a 4th woman at the bell tower, and then they're just gone. They get into the church, there's no sign of them, there was no way for them to get out. They wouldn't have been able to get away without them seeing where they were going. Just gone. And then we have that crazy deadly shipwreck later that night. 8 bell rings, 8 dead bodies, or 8 people dead that, some were lost at sea. 3 women walking towards the church. 3 women that belonged to that church perished in this. And then the 4th woman was lost at sea, and there's a 4th woman up on the bell tower.
That is very strange.
And then
too many coincidences. I was going to say your microphone sounds like you went underwater, so I don't know if you need to mute and adjust that real quick. But for the 3 women entering the church, that doesn't seem suspicious until they vanish. And then it's, okay, nobody knows where they went. The bell tolling 8 times, unless it's 8 o'clock. I don't know if it's one of those bells that tolls on the hour.
Yeah, it was too early for it to be 8 o'clock. It was like before the sunrise.
Okay. So obviously you can rule that out. So it's strange that you're hearing that. There's so many weird coincidences with this.
Yeah.
But the bell tolling 8 times to signify that 8 people were going to die that night is crazy. It's also crazy it's the same day. If it happened like a week earlier, they'd be like, remember last week when that happened? That was a little strange. Maybe that's something to do with it. But if it's the same day, there's too many coincidences for me not to rule it out.
And we have no other hauntings associated with this church, just this one instance with this one tragedy. And a lot of people were chalking the ghostly women up to being banshees, because banshees are capable of foretelling death to family members. So a lot of people were saying that these women that were walking in, these ghostly women, were actually banshees that were foretelling the death coming that evening or that afternoon. And it's really chilling because, even like hauntings that happen sporadically, you hear people be like, yeah, I saw something there. I saw something there. You can't find anything else on this place. Now, they tore down the church. They rebuilt it. It's not the same exact building, but that usually doesn't matter. But even then, we have nothing in history associated with another haunting with this place. And I just found it so different than anything we've ever covered.
Check this out. So the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, this article is from January of this year, announced the discovery of the bones in Prince Edward Island last week in a press release, noting that other human remains have been located in the area in the past. So Moore added that the remains were found on January 27th by a local resident who noticed the bones after they became visible due to the surrounding cliff eroding away. Human remains were found in the same location in the 1950s and 1960s, and they believed that these were the bodies of that washed up to shore from the shipwreck.
Oh, see, at
really?
First I thought this was just, you're digging, maybe you came across an old cemetery or unmarked grave or something, but for this to be those bodies, that's pretty wild.
Yeah. So that's pretty dark. And this happened earlier this year.
Wow, that's crazy. I
That's
did not come across that one.
You know what
And
else is crazy? Is Zeta Chimera?
yes, Chimera.
I've been trying to figure out how to say this word. Just came in and donated $5. So thank you, Zeta. We appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Yes.
You're a legend.
And let's just talk about the shipwreck real quick, because this crew was a bunch of assholes. Essentially, they went, it's captain down with the ship and all that stuff, and the crew's supposed to go down, and you save the passengers and stuff first. The captain was trying to save the items that he was transporting before the people. And then the crew just started hijacking the lifeboats. There was a big controversy. There was trials. I linked on our Discord in the resources section while the episode was going. I threw up a bunch of newspaper articles from that time frame, from the 1850s, covering the wreck and the trials of the crew. So if you're interested and reading a little bit more about that, you can go to our Discord and jump in the resource section and find those newspaper articles. But yeah, like, what are we doing here? You had 2 lifeboats and you can't save. There's 26 people.
Hang on. Did the article go into how nice his things were?
Oh yeah, the mail was beautiful. It was written so well.
Well, you gotta take that into account. I mean, what if they were some shitty people? What if they were mean to him? If people were mean to me, and I had some really good mail of people being nice to me in the letters, I don't know. I might consider it.
I'm not saying that the mail in any circumstance is ever more important than the other passengers on the boat, but mail was significantly more important back then. It was.
What if it was Easy Pass bills? Have you seen how quickly they add fines to Easy Pass bills? You gotta look at it from his point of view.
Now, just to reiterate, I'm not saying the mail was more important than the other passengers. I am
Neither
just
am I.
stating that mail was a lot more important.
What Jesse and Dave are saying is that they will save a postcard and leave you in open water.
Have you seen the Tom Hanks movie where he gets stranded on the island?
Yeah.
What was it called? Castaway. And remember how important that mail was to him? I bet if Tom Hanks was the captain of that ship, he would have saved the mail before the people. So take that, Tom Hanks.
Well, can't wait for that cease and desist letter to come and not get lost at sea. So this story is very prominent in Canada and on Prince Edward Island. And one of those pictures that I showed within the episode, Canada's kind of cool. They did this whole stamp campaign, continuing with the mail. Mm-hmm. They did a bunch of stamps that were related to hauntings of Canada. And they did this phantom bell ringer one as one of the stamps. So that was one of the last photos you saw of the 3 women by the bell tower. So very cool of them to do that, but just such a different story than things we've covered in the past.
Yeah, it really is. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Cold Warrior coming with a $10 donation says, how about these brave, handsome sailors? Yeah, it sounds like they were handsome, brave, maybe strong.
They sounded so brave. They sounded real brave.
You have to be strong to carry all that mail.
Yes, indeed. All right. Do we want to talk about Dalton Hall over at the university, Prince Edward Island University?
I think we do.
And we had students going to college at 16 years old back in the day over at Prince Edward Island. And it's this one, I like this story because it shows the evolution of a ghost story a little bit, where over time there's a few things that get tinkered with, but the element of truth is still always within the story somewhere. So the story has kind of mutated over the years to the student who we now know is named Ivan. Malloy was the name of this student. We found the newspaper article. Shout out to a professor at the university. He actually went and dug all this up, and I was able to go find the newspaper article because of it. But over the years, the story became this student did leave for the night. He got back too late, and he got to the door. And because the curfew was so strict that his RA was like, I'm not letting you in. You can't come in. You're here after curfew. And it's snowing, blistering cold.
Oh God, that sounds like someone who would definitely take the mail before the passengers, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah. See, Canada's so nice, aren't you? And then the student dies on the steps of Dalton Hall. And going back in history, reading the newspaper article, we see that there's elements of truth to that story, but not exactly word for word what happened.
I wonder if the RA texted his buddies, "House long to die in cold."
Yes. So he goes out on Friday the 13th with two friends, which is Friday, February 13th, 1931, with his two friends, and they don't know where they go. People assume they went to a bootlegger in town because I guess you couldn't drink in Canada at the time. Didn't look to see what their prohibition situation was. So let us know in the comments what was going on with prohibition in Canada so that we are more educated, and please don't yell at us. We are very delicate flowers.
Well, are we talking about 16-year-olds?
We're talking about 16-year-olds, so it could have been an underage thing, but I think you're allowed to drink in Canada even to this day once you hit 4 years old. I think that's a law.
It's a survival tactic to survive the cold, actually. Just give the kids whiskey.
Yeah, got to warm them up somehow.
Yeah.
So that's what they think happened. They're not sure. And then it just got more snow, more cold, and his friends just kind of leave him. Friends just kind of ditch him because they want to get back to the room because they don't want to be late and get in trouble, and leave him behind. And they're just like, oh, well, he'll show up the next day. And he doesn't show up the next day, and they're kind of like, oh, shit, where is he? And like they're walking around that day nervous. And all I could think about when I was reading this, Jesse, was this was a me laying on Las Vegas Boulevard situation and you not being able to find me when I had drank a little bit too much. Now, there was no snow and it was quite hot out, but you looked for me is what I will say. You actually looked for me. These assholes did not go look for their friend. They did not try to save their friend that was laying on Las Vegas Boulevard.
That's true. The one thing I didn't have to worry about was you freezing to death in Las Vegas in July.
No, I
actively looked for you, but you did not make it very clear where you were or why you would. Well, actually, you did give me a reason why you were going to lay it. You're like, it looks comfortable. I'm like, no, it doesn't, Rob. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Don't sleep there. But yeah, so I was never more relieved to get back to the Hard Rock Hotel and see that Rob had actually beaten me back to the hotel and was not, in fact, sleeping in the road.
Not anymore. I had written all my Facebook statuses by that point. We were good to go. We were good to climb some fences at that point.
So, Prohibition in Canada was from 1918 to 1920, but on Prince Edward Island, it was from 1901 to 1948.
Okay. The only reason I brought up age of 16 was because I figured maybe it was a drinking age thing, which I don't know if it's across Canada, but as far as I know, like Toronto or a couple other areas are 18 plus to drink. I don't know if it might have been different back in the day. That might have been before can you now search and see what the drinking age was back then?
Yeah,
I can try.
Okay.
Jave is going to be an expert in Canadian drinking law by the end of this episode.
Definitely before we go up there, so figure it out. Gotta find out, do they let 55-year-olds drink in Canada? Oh, I'm good. All right.
Yeah. If there's still an active prohibition on Prince Edward Island right now, we're not fucking going.
Not on the list. Not on the list. It already sounds like there's the rare breed of unfriendly Canadians up here. You know?
Yeah, that works for us, though. So he ends up freezing to death in a field behind a snowbank. So it was sort of an area that people would go by, but because he was behind this snowbank, nobody saw him until they actually went looking for him. So it ends up being a sad story, but the ghost stories start immediately, and they all get attributed to believing that it was Ivan Malloy who was haunting this place because of the way that he went, and he was trying to get back to this hall. So it starts as a sad story, and then you get the phantom knocking on the door, which is a pretty common one. The one that's not as common is the puddle of water on the floor by his room. And the professor that did all the research on this said that they looked for years for the source because they figured it was something coming from the wall, plumbing, anything, and nothing could be attributed to why this puddle of water would just appear on occasion.
All right, we've seen this in a few poltergeist cases, but as for in regular haunting scenarios, and I'm not going to rule out that this could be a poltergeist. You get the knocks on the wall, puddles of water forming. I just don't know if there's any other poltergeist activity to go along with that, but it's not completely uncommon. But what you do see in these cases is they always have people looking for the source and unable to figure it out.
Correct.
I mean, it's Canada. It could be people trekking snow off their boots, but you would assume that it wouldn't just be one puddle of water if that was the case, unless they put their boots down for a little while, then moved them. Can't rule it out, especially in a snowy environment. But
Yeah.
so I'm assuming that somebody that was an expert in this and was looking into where the water could be coming from would know if it was just from a pair of boots, right?
Correct. And then we get some other reports of like the one kid that went outside and had the icy hands grab him by the shoulders. And I'm not saying it didn't happen, but what I will say is we were talking about a college dorm where, again, we have the element of truth of some of this stuff we know has happened. We know where the ghost story originates. But I would wager to guess that some of the stories got a little bit twisted over time to scare some of the new students that were moving in back when this was a student dorm, which, again, it's no longer a student dorm. It hasn't been since the 70s. It's more of like a admissions and offices building for the school now. But I would assume over that 40 years that it was still a dormitory. You know, you're trying to scare people. Like when you go to a campfire, right? You're trying to up the story to scare the new people. But when it's based on truth, you got to kind of try to figure out where that line's being blurred.
Yeah, Potts brings this up, which is actually kind of a funny point because it has a relevance of truth, according to some researchers. He says maybe the puddle is what happens when a ghost that is frozen thaws out. And what we had dealt with in one of the poltergeist cases that we covered recently, they had assumed that when a poltergeist manifests or when it moves around, that the puddles that form are like ghost condensation, which I believe it was Guy Lyon Playfair who came up with that theory, or at least thought that was the case in that situation. I don't know if the ghost condensation was something that happened in other scenarios, but it's a wild theory. I'd have to read his actual quote on it before I laugh about it.
Was that the term that he used?
No, but that's basically what it came down to.
All right. Because that sounds so much more ridiculous.
It does,
Ghost
doesn't it?
condensation. So I looked up drinking ages in Canada, and it was currently. Well, you told me to. Okay. Presently, it's 19 on Prince Edward Island. It was up until recently, it was 18, and then during the time of Prohibition, obviously there was no drinking age. But I also got which province in Canada drinks the most alcohol. Want to guess?
Manitoba.
This would be more fun for people from Canada.
Yeah, because I know like Alberta. I'm gonna say Alberta.
Okay, Jesse.
Yeah, me too, because I don't know. I'm going to say Prince Edward Island. All 50 of those people.
So Prince Edward Island has the lowest use, and Quebec is actually the highest. So maybe that'll be fun for the Canadian people. For us who don't really know any Canadian provinces, we're like, okay.
Is it
Manitoba.
pronounced Quebec or is it just Quebec?
It might be Quebec.
Quebec, kebab. Did you make it?
What?
We're going to make some kebabs in Quebec. I'm trying out new accents. I can't just do the British accent all the time. Anyways, the poltergeist case that I was referring to was the Battersea poltergeist, actually. Not Battersea, I'm sorry. No, the Black Monk poltergeist that we covered in Pontefract.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like right around the corner from the Battersea poltergeist.
Right.
And finally was and the college has other hauntings. They had one, I believe it was the library that used to have hauntings. They would hear knockings in there and like people tapping in the walls. But they did actually debunk that one because this is one of the rare cases that they did renovations and replaced all the piping and plumbing and whatever building this was. And as soon as they did all the renovations and replaced all the piping, all of the knocking went away. So it does appear to be that particular building was structural for its hauntings, not actually.
Right. That's kind of the first thing that skeptics will always jump to when you're hearing kind of clicking or banging on the walls is it's just the pipes. It's just the pipes. In that case, it either was the pipes or, I don't know, the ghost wanted to get out of the walls. They opened up the walls and the ghost escaped and stopped banging on the pipes. Could have been both.
There you go.
Boom.
There you go. Boom. Figured it out.
The pipes in the wall could also explain your mysterious puddles of water.
Different building.
Just saying.
Well, they tried to debunk it. They tried to figure out if it was the pipes.
It depends
And
on what's
they
wrong
rolled
with
it
the
out.
pipes. If there's something really wrong with the pipes, they could spray all the way into the other building. So,
Yep.
boom.
Solved.
We don't rule anything out here on this show.
Debunked.
Everything's
We need a debunked graphic to go along with the
stamp.
Yeah.
No, we don't do that 'cause we don't like those people. So we keep the it's haunted stamp.
Yes.
We can do a debunked stamp. We do some debunking. We'll play the haunted.
I didn't
one
say
anyways. Why not?
replace
Hey,
it. I meant
it's haunted.
damn, it's
settled.
official now.
Yep.
And our final location is the King's Playhouse, which they boast to being the oldest running theater in Canada. It did burn down in the 80s. They did have to rebuild it. They built this on top of the body of sailors, I read in one verified source. And I was like, how'd they get away with that? First of all, and there is like a little memorial out there, but I don't know what it's for. Should have probably looked a little more into that, but yeah, what are we doing?
I do find that ghosts really hate it when you build things on top of their graves.
Yeah, usually doesn't work out too well for people, right?
Yeah.
So, although the hauntings here are not like malicious in nature for the most part, at least all the ones that are reported aren't anything malicious. They haven't, it's more playful than anything.
Mhm.
Although, don't touch my ankles. Like, just don't grab especially while I'm watching a show. My first thought is not going to be ghost, though. My first thought is going to be, I'm at this theater, I'm watching a play. Some asshat brought his 4-year-old kid, who's now crawling underneath the seats. I have to call child services and try to get this kid put into a foster home at this point. Because that's the only logical way to deal with this. Clearly, this is bad parenting. And
now they went and they took the ghost and they put the ghost in the foster home, and now you've terrified the orphans again, Rob.
Good. It's full circle. Here comes Hometown Ghost Stories.
You are a terrible person.
But that's where my thought would be. But just don't touch my ankles while I'm trying to watch a show. How inconvenient is that? How distracting while you're trying to watch somebody do a play that you don't want to watch. Who wants to go to the theater? Not me.
Some poor ghost is trying to gather as much energy as it can to try and manifest, to communicate with you, Rob. And it finally musters enough energy up to reach out and try and get your attention to help it solve its murder or whatever its problem is. And you're going to put it in a ghost foster home.
Yeah.
Thoughtless.
This is what I do as a paranormal investigator. I relocate. I relocate the ghost. So yeah, it's let's talk about the chair, which I'm very disappointed. I was looking for a photo of the chair online and could not find one. Like, how do you not? There's newspaper articles that report on this. You would think if I was writing a newspaper article on it and I went to the place, I would take a photo of the goddamn chair, right? Like that's journalism 101. We're going to talk about this chair that this ghost has for itself. Let me take a photo of it. And I could not find a single photo of the chair. So if you do find a photo, come drop it in our Discord. But I found that story really funny, the one where they were looking for a prop for that evening for the stage show. Mm-hmm. And the director of the house, he's like, I'll just grab, Captain George's chair. And I'll use that. And everything went wrong the entire night. They said the lighting was messing up, props were falling, actors were tripping over like things. Like they said that nothing went right for this entire show. He, at the end of the night, puts the chair back to where it belongs. The very next night, the show runs without a hitch. So
there's a lot of haunted theaters that have situations like that, where the ghosts want something a certain way, and whether it's just mischief they want, or if they're trying to get attention for whatever reason, they'll just screw with lights, they'll screw with equipment, and then once you give them what they want, it stops. There was one in, I think it was maybe Albuquerque, where the ghost wanted to be left donuts. So they'd leave donuts out.
Austin, Texas, in the theater, they would bring him a Snickers bar as an offering.
Yeah,
right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And when things didn't go right, it's because they forgot the Snickers, and they would run the Snickers up. Snickers and a Coke, I believe it was.
Yep.
Like a large Coke or whatever the drink was, and they still do that to this day.
It was a can.
Yeah, the Paramount.
Well, don't sit in the haunted chair. That's pretty wild. They should have donated more of the ticket price money to charity. All right, fine. Don't laugh at my joke. I don't share at all. All right, yeah, moving on.
All right, I guess we're just gonna let that pass. We're gonna let that one go. Anyways, there are other hauntings at the King's Playhouse. There have been whispers heard. The lead singer of the band hearing the whispers in their ear the entire time they're trying to sing.
It's so strange because you'd think during a concert, like, who the hell's gonna hear a whisper in their ear?
Yeah, but I mean, when you're on stage, it's not as. I mean, it is still loud. I'm not gonna say it's not. We've been on stage for concerts, but I don't know. It's
not as loud behind the speakers, but I mean, you think a lot of these guys have earpieces in. It's a very strange thing to hear. West Virginia coal miner donating $1.99 says he loved my chair jokes.
Oh, is that what he said?
He did say that, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
And there's been whispers on the hallway as well, and just like little playful things throughout this entire thing. If you look up the Playhouse, you'll find like 20 different haunting stories. The other one that I found really different from the rest of the hauntings here was the one at the wedding, where they debunked all the shadows that they could, and there was this shadow figure in front of this couple. Once again, though, this was a newspaper article. This wasn't, just a Reddit post or anything. This was a newspaper article in one of the local newspapers, and they did not attach the video to it, which it's like, you're telling me about this video, show me the video, right? They've used the couple's name. They were at this person and this person's wedding. There was a ghost, but we're not going to show you the video because we're just not going to.
Drives me nuts. It does drive me nuts. It does come down to a permission thing. So if the family gives them permission to use the video, or whoever shot the video, if they give the newspaper permission, they can. If they don't give them permission, then they're just out of luck. In my opinion, if I were that journalist, I don't run the story if they don't give me the video.
Right. You're interviewing them. Like, they're literally giving you an interview. If we're going to interview you, like, if someone told us, right? Like, if someone emailed us and was like, I have the craziest ghost video of all time. I have a full body apparition on camera. I want to come on your show and talk about it, but we can't show the video. I'd be like, well, that's awesome for you.
Yeah, submit your written story into our listener ghost stories, but we're not going to talk about the video if you're not going to.
We're not going to talk about the video if I can't play. I'm going to be like, you guys should, we're going to bring this person on. We're going to talk about this video that none of us have seen, and we're just going to take them at their word for it. And
yeah, also he's not going to show up for the interview, and you can just talk about him. Yeah. That's pretty much the same thing, right? I don't know.
Yeah. It's crazy. So
I don't understand the mindset. It's like, I want you to run this story that I have, this ghost story that I have, but here's the catch. I don't want anyone to believe me.
I don't think it. Yeah, I think it's a little bit of that, and I think it's maybe some people don't want their video picked apart by internet skeptics, who, in fairness, can be the worst kind of people. And also, if you're going to put your story out there, if you're going to share your story, share the video, because otherwise,
it does nothing but lend more credence to the story.
Mm-hmm.
In fairness, we don't know that he didn't give them permission to. This could be on the newspaper side too, where they just didn't find a way to post a link to it or like embed it on their story or something. So, not saying that he did or didn't. It's just, as the newspaper, you should be on top of that more than, I give the newspaper more fault than the person.
Just for clarification, when you say newspaper, you're talking about an internet article, right?
It was linked to a Canadian. I can't remember the paper, but it was linked to a Canadian newspaper.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, like, if it was a newspaper article, obviously they didn't include the fucking video.
Oh, no shit, Dave! This isn't fucking Harry Potter.
You're the one saying. I'm just saying, because you're saying newspaper and over, and I'm just making sure that there's an actual internet article.
Rob's looking, holding up the newspaper. What's wrong with this thing?
Yeah, why isn't Sirius Black yelling at the front of this paper?
Thanks for clarifying that, Dave. That was really important that we all figure that out.
Rob, I'm looking out for you. I don't want people to think you're stupid.
Well,
believe me, there's no saving Rob from that now.
Anyways,
I made a few more chair jokes. You guys want to hear
jokes? Yeah, so that's those are the stories that we covered on Prince Edward Island, and again, so much more to cover. We didn't even cover the burning ship, which will be in a future episode. it's like the burning ship is like their biggest haunting. So look forward to that when we do Prince Edward Island again. But like I said, I did look into going there. I think I can do a 9-hour drive. I think that's like my limit now. I mean, I can do more if I had to, but for like a vacation, like a 3-day vacation, Prince Edward Island is right within that limit. Hinsdale was like.
Now, this is obviously in the name Island. Is there bridge access, or would we also have to ferry over?
No, it looks like there's bridge access, so I think you can just take your car over there.
Do they have an airport?
Do they have a chairport? I'll stop.
I don't know. I would assume they do. I would assume they have a little one, or there's probably a closer city, but 9 hours, bro. We can do 9 hours.
We could make some stops along the way. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Why not?
Be a good little drive through Vermont and wherever else, and probably according to Dave's GPS,
Arizona,
yeah, we hit Arizona,
Gettysburg,
London.
A little pit stop in London on our way. Yeah, why not? That'd be fun.
But yeah, that's it. If you guys have any other hauntings in Prince Edward Island that we didn't cover that you want us to do next time, let us know in the comments or in Discord. But let's get, you guys want to get into a couple 5-star reviews real quick?
Sure.
Absolutely.
So first we had Just One More Episode, who left their review a couple weeks ago. They updated it, and at the end of it, they wanted to let us know that they loved the North Pole episode, which I just want to say thank you to Just One More Episode for that, because you are the only person that's ever listened to that episode. So thank you. So thank you for listening and enjoying that one.
We learned some
things. We tried out some things.
Naming episodes. Don't have the word Christmas or North Pole or anything in any episode about ghosts. People will skip right over it.
Yep, people do not like that when it comes to their ghost stories on Christmas. This other one is from Junker51, titled Best Paranormal Podcast. Found these guys from listening to Haunted American History. They have quickly become one of my top 3 podcasts, binging all their material currently, and even have gotten my daughter hooked. Good mix of belief and skepticism. Their chemistry and banter make them a joy to listen to. Always a laugh in store. Thank you all for the hard work you guys do to bring us the stories and entertainment. It's also a bonus that I'm a North Country gal who is a native resident of Coos County, New Hampshire. Sorry, you're never going to live that down.
You screwed it up.
I know, I did it on purpose because that's what we were saying.
Gotcha.
So I was leaning into your bit, Dave.
That's right.
I was leaning into your bit. So that's what we had over on Apple, and we'll get into some Spotify reviews next week as well.
I almost killed that bug that landed on my desk. Turns out it was a ladybug. Didn't kill her. So here's a little update for you guys. Shall we hop into our Patreon members?
Please do. We don't need to know your your play-by-play of everything you're doing over there at your desk.
Right now, I was thinking about more chair jokes, but I'll go through the Patreon members instead. Let's start with our VIPs. Kicking it off with Tess, Dave D, Kate and Steve M, Blazora, Glitter Tees, Cammy from Washington, Kelly C, Jennifer P, Nick, Donnie N, Inspires Gaming, Allison V, Robert H. Ohio is the bestest, most haunted state. J9 RIP, watch out for ankle-grabbing ghosts. Mallory K, Mom and Pops W, Lisa J, and Dude, Where's My Taco-Filled Car? Very good. Let's hop into the Warren's Wards next. And let's kick that off with Beth C, Serena, Shawners, Apple, Steph, Leslie F, Rachel G, Her Lady Spookship, Nefarious Chad Poles, Wahidi Pirate, I Am the Bridge Witch, and I Hate Rob, Julie Gooley, Eugene M, Arcade Hunters, Kath Q, my ghost is making puddles in Walmart's frozen pizza section. Beautiful. DC, Chris Connolly, LBPS founder, next HTGS guest, the other Rachel B, Sarah Cook, Zeta Chimera, Janice G, Lily, Rachel B, America's Top Hat, and Rob's Icy Orphan Hands. La petite filet qui hante tes couches.
I'm sure you nailed that.
Yeah, must have hit all those words.
French is always phenomenal. Papa Squatch. Hey, little mama, let me whisper in your ear. Michelob Knuckle Goo. What the fuck is that, Seth? What does that mean? But we like it. And then Rob secretly loves fishing, which is a fact.
I think you need to redo the "Hey, little mama, let me whisper in your ear." But
you got to do it in Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, you have to do the Bruce Springsteen voice.
Oh, wait, I've missed all this. What is this about?
Do you not know who Bruce Springsteen is? Have you never heard
I
this
know
song?
Bruce Springsteen. Is there a Hey Little Mama?
Yeah.
All I can think of is that the hip hop song.
If this is actually a Bruce Springsteen reference, the lyric is, "Hey little girl, is your daddy home?"
Oh, don't do that. Okay, moving on. Thank you, Dave. Thank you for that. Moving on. All right, let's go into
or it's
a fucking song.
You kind of just did, Dave.
Or is it the rap song? Like, hey, little mama, let me whisper.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking was the rap song.
Yeah.
Dave, you can't sing the song and say I didn't sing the song.
I said I didn't write the song.
Oh, I thought you said you didn't sing the song. That's what I was saying. You kind of just did. I know you didn't write it. Yeah. Wait, you mean Dave doesn't write Bruce Springsteen songs? Let's continue along this list. We have Italian bone lasagna.
Tasty.
Joe, Sherry P, Shay, Trevor S, Tyrone B. We have Say His Name and He Appears. Rob believes in Joe Hendry. Oh,
I do.
Rob believes in Joe Hendry.
I do believe in Joe Hendry.
Is this a wrestling reference?
It is actually. Yes.
We have Christina S, Kate C, Chrissy. We have Kelly C, Isla D, Arg, Crazy Legs 2005, American Wear Potato in Texas, West Virginia coal miner, hashtag the revenge of Cake Dave. I am Senior Master Weather Observer Dave Wilkins. Wow, congratulations. All you have to do is read the weather once and you are in fact a weather observer. We have Just Call Me Bree, Miss Macabre, a witch spying on a farmer, aka a sack of grain, Michelle Naroku, Cold Warrior, who is another donator today. We appreciate that. Just another Ohio pizza name. More chair jokes. See that? Woo. People want. D from H-Town, Meta A, Sarah B, Dominica, Crota, son of Oryx, Monster Bomb 04, Allie Dark Snark. No, Dave, I did not call Jesse a coward. I said McTibbles wouldn't be scared to read Patreon names. Stick to Spanish, por favor. Por favor, but por favor. Okay.
You've also angered Amanda in the chat, who said that you did not read out her Patreon name properly. So I'm going to assume that means that another person has put Jesse at the bottom of their host list.
Oh, Tyrone Biggums. Okay. I usually just go first name, last initial, but I won't in this situation because we have Tyrone Biggums. Look at that.
You nailed it.
First time reading that one. Look at that. Love that. Megan S, Morgan S, Sharon V, Wayne C, Frosty the Ghost drips happy puddles of ectoplasma, Crystal Quinn, we still have good old Colby. The only thing hotter than Daddy Rob is the heat wave. Wow. Look at that. True. Alicia E. Thick Boy Freddy allegedly wondering how Dave can do an episode about America's hat but not wear one of his own. What the F, Dave? Swanee.
Wait too hot in my house right now.
I am sweating. The Canadian Air Force is full of Cobra chickens.
Oh.
All right.
Good to know.
We learned even more about Canada today. Look at that. Sam from Nepal, Joe R. and Paul from St. Louis, I believe. Did I fit them all on one page? No, I did not. Of course not. Too many generous people. We have Al Capone. I miss when the shows were all about me. Huggy Bear. Inevita Dave. The creepy guy who eats deviled eggs while being spied on by a sack of grain. Solar Flare. Mariah M. Kiralee J. Anthony. Thick Boy. Freddie Admirer T. Wow. Look at that. You have an admirer there, Freddie. Cody G. Brandon W. Hoopily Whoopily. Bridge Witch. And the Polkageist. You know what's going to be funny is whenever we eventually meet, Thick Boy Freddy, and it's going to throw us off because his name is probably not Freddy. We've been calling him Thick Boy Freddy ever since that first Freddy Krueger joke. It's like, wait, your name isn't Freddy? Legally change your name, Thick Boy Freddy.
Yeah.
Not just to Freddy, but to Thick Boy Freddy.
Yeah, yeah. With an OI.
Yes, absolutely. I ran away to let my dog out. Did you guys discuss the live episodes and stuff?
Sure did.
Sure did. Okay, we'll keep
discuss them again.
No.
October. Okay.
Do not.
Yeah, we don't want to. Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Terrible idea. All right.
Don't
if you're just tuning in now, you are not welcome.
You heard about a live show? We don't want you there. We're trying to do this show in front of nobody.
This is going to be a lot of fun to edit this episode. All right, we're going to rock and roll here. We'll be back on Friday with another side content episode. What are we dropping on Friday? Movie review?
Friday is In a Violent Nature movie review. And if you listen to our Patreon names, a lot of them were referencing the Strange Graves episode that we did as well. So make sure you check that out.
Absolutely. So
next week, Tuesday, listener submitted ghost stories. So if you want your story read out loud on the show, send it to hometownghoststories@gmail.com, or you can send it in an Instagram message or or Discord, however you prefer to get us your stories.
Get it to us now.
Yeah, try
Right
to
now.
get as quickly as possible, because we do need to go through them and record them and edit them and stuff like that. But listener ghost stories, one of my favorite things to do. Like we always say, this is one of the things that we originally started the show to do, was just to do your ghost stories. So we'll get another one of those next week. Be sure to send those in, and we will go through them. If you have sent one in before that hasn't been read on the show, feel free to polish it up or just resend it the first way you sent it. It's possible that it got lost in the shuffle, and we'll get to as many as we can. That's next week, so get after it, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Thank you.
Peace.